Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to share with you one of my smart friends, Marisa Corcoran. She helps online business owners become instantly recognizable brands and voices in their industries by pinpointing their uncopyable message and by building their own summits so they can bring their genius to the wider world through her signature programs, the Copy Confidence Society, and Limelight. Marisa, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing just your wealth of knowledge. You started your life as a copywriter. And so I really want to focus today about newsletters. You and I are both huge, huge advocates of email newsletters. And in fact, just before we got on, we were talking about how much we hate social media and how we're both thinking about taking
So
I mean,
literally, we were both like, I
I'm
want to
done.
be gone from this free. I was just saying to Michelle that I was like, okay, if it's my 41st birthday in July, and I think that like on that day, I'm going to announce like, I'll see you in 365 days and we'll see what happens. Yeah. But with that, I would never step away from my inbox or my
Mhm.
email. That is just the most powerful place. I think there's so much intention and intimacy and things that can happen there. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I know that's what, if I'm consistent with it, that is what, I love taking people on those journeys. I love people who have been around for years. I definitely have seen people who've been on my list for years come hire me, come buy my products, join me for that ride. And so, you know, I tend to write a weekly newsletter. I know you write a lot of regular newsletters, but coming up with relevant content that frankly isn't boring, I know it can be really, really tough, especially if you're
Totally.
writing on this regular basis, right?
Yep.
So I would love to talk to you about how do we get unstuck? And you've got
Mhm.
this concept of a word closet that I'd like to dig into. Can you share more about what is a word closet? Like what is this and how can we use it?
Yeah, I actually think there's something else that we could talk about too, which is these motifs that kind of help overall, like, what are you going to talk about in your newsletter? So we could go back to that. But the
Sure.
word closet specifically is so if you think about if you were going to do a photo shoot or you were getting ready for an event and you were going to work with a stylist or something, it's likely they would ask you like, okay, Michelle, check out your closet. Like, what are your go-to colors? Like, what are the things that you gravitate towards? So for me, like a lot of red. um I always joke because I'm not a cat person, but I love like leopard print, like anything like cheetah print. Like I love a leopard print, even though like in real life I'm not a cat person, but I like a lot of like those kinds of prints. So like what are those go-to colors? So in the same way that you have go-to colors or patterns or things that you might want to use visually, you have the same thing when it comes to the words. That's why we call it your word closet. So something that I have everybody do when they join our signature program, the Copy Confidence Society, is to create their word closet, which is to think about, in order to do this, you really want to step out of your kind of marketing life and look in your regular life of the people that you email there or text. So you want to think about friends or parents or a partner. And just look to see like what are some of those phrases or ways that you communicate or like sign off with people. Those will go in your word closet. So for example, I tend to say the word jazzed a lot. Like instead of saying I'm so excited, I'll be like I'm jazzed, can't wait. So jazzed is something that's in my word closet, for example. And then
Mhm.
if you have kids in your life, I always say if kids are repeating or saying stuff to you, it's likely they're repeating stuff that you say to
Mm.
them. So to give you an example, when we had our online, I hired an online curriculum specialist a few years ago who went through every nook and cranny of the society to make sure that it was doable for the different learning styles. When she ran through it, she kind of took the program, and when she was doing this, she realized that her child always says to her, "Shut the front door," because she says shut the front door so that she's not, swearing.
Yeah.
So that's something that she could use. So when
Mhm.
people join her email newsletter, instead of being like, oh, hey, Michelle, the first email that she sends people is like, shut the front door, Michelle.
Mm.
And if it was my work, I'd be like, I'm so jazzed you're here.
Yeah.
Right. So just that, it makes it feel more personal and more like you
Mhm.
get an idea of this person before you even have to start diving into your stories, your personal stories, just these little
Mm.
elements. So going through and thinking about what are the words that you use with the friends or the loved ones in your life. Go back and look at those email text messages. What seem to be, you can also ask people. So for
Mm.
example, one of my best friends, um, I always joke with her, she always says, it's my pleasure. She's like, do I say that all the time? I go, yeah. So fast forward, she now has a child. And she
Mm.
told me this a couple months ago. She's like, oh my God, she asked her son to like put away his toys. And he looked at her dead eyed and goes, it's my pleasure. And she was like, oh my God, you're
What a
right.
trip. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So that could be like in
Mm,
her word closet. So especially if you're using, let's say you're using AI and
mm,
ChatGPT or something that's helping you kind of maybe structure or get an email. And maybe it gets you part of the way there, but you're like, okay, how do I actually make sure this sounds like me and doesn't sound like everybody else? Your word closet, you can go and infuse some of those
mm,
places. So that's your word closet. And then we always pair that with what we call your accessories closet.
mm,
So your accessories closet is like a list of your favorite, you don't have to know how you're going to use it. But in the society, we ask you like your favorite beverage, your favorite cookie, your favorite
mm,
whatever. And so when you go through and want to sub out some more of those generic phrases or things that you see, you can sub in. So when someone joins my email list, it literally says for the first email that you get after you download our lead magnet, the first email says, Holy white chocolate covered Oreos at Christmas, Michelle. I'm jazzed you're here. As
mm,
promised, here's access to the 50 plus scroll stopping subject lines. So just from like those 3 lines, you get a sense of who I am. And I can't tell you when people respond back to me and they're like, oh my God, I
mm,
also love white chocolate covered Oreos. And
mm.
then like, oh, do you remember when we were kids, they only came out once a year at Kmart. Like you couldn't get them throughout the year. They were a holiday seasonal special. And now I'm starting a conversation with this person. So you can
Mm.
also use your accessories closet. Like for example, Michelle, like what's your favorite beverage? Could be
Oh,
cocktail, regular, doesn't matter.
Spindrift. Spindrift blood orange
Oh my God, I
tangerine.
forgot about
Yes.
Spindrift.
Spindrift is great. Yeah.
I forgot about Spindrift. What's the flavor?
Blood orange tangerine.
Blood orange tangerine. So let's
Yes.
say you were sending like an email about, recent wins of your clients or what you're up
Mm,
to. People will say like, hold my beer, like
yeah.
that. So instead you can say like, okay, hold my, blood
Mm,
orange tangerine spindrift,
hmm.
because here come the
Yeah.
results of what people have been up to inside of the community. So
I love that.
we're just elevating that to sound a bit more like you. So when you're looking at your newsletters, I always say, okay, are there at least like
Mm,
2 or 3 spots in this email that have either an element of your word closet or an element of your accessories closet, so it just feels a bit
mm.
more like you without overhauling the whole thing. And especially helpful if you're using something like ChatGPT or AI.
So I love this. And I'm going to caution people to be careful what words that you choose because I got known for this phrase, get the guac. So I had a story many years
I
ago
know,
about
but
I
I
wanted
love Get the Glock.
right? I had a story about I want people to generate enough revenue so they can always get the guac at Chipotle, right?
Yep.
Before when Chipotle was actually really tasty. But there's that thing when you get to the end of the line, you're like, you want the guac, it's an extra $2, and you're like, I want it to be like you don't even have to think about it. Yes, I want the guac, right? I cannot tell you how many stuffed avocados, avocado paintings, like sorts of things that were mailed to me, which is hilarious, right? Because it becomes an association with that person.
Yep.
Listen, I like avocados as much as the next person, but I don't need the stuffed animal,
You
right?
don't need the stuffed animal. Yeah,
Yeah. And I had
totally.
one quick thought for you too. Like I was, how we use AI is it's fraught with a lot of things, right? I know so many people who use it and I can totally tell when they use it. But I think when you're coming up with your word closet, a smart use of AI is when you're recording your conversations, you can throw that into Otter, grab the transcript, take it to chat, and ask it to actually pull out, hey, what are my most commonly used phrases? What are
Totally.
things, So I think that can be, I like to think of AI as a helper, someone that
Me
can
too.
help me expedite certain tasks. So I think that
Yep.
could be a useful way to use it.
I always think about this when I go to AI. I'm like, oh my God, I was AI for my clients. So
Mm,
when people think about the word closet, people ask me where it came from. When I was a done for you copywriter, in the intake with my clients, I would ask them, okay, I need to know a story about this, a story about this.
mm,
I'm going to help you create something I call a word closet, an accessories closet. And we would sit on these calls and we would go through it. And then I would interview their clients for all the pain points, all the things. And I would print it out in
oh
my
my God.
apartment and have different highlighters. So blue was like the pain points because that's the hottest part of the flame. Yellow was, and I was ChatGPT.
Ugh,
So that's how I use AI. I don't use AI to write because I believe like we still have to be creative
yeah.
and we can't make up our stories, but I will definitely use it to say, okay, this person is, this is what they do. Can you tell me based on this ICA, these conversations, what are the top things that they're wanting? What are the
Mm,
top things like the helper, that efficiency without it taking away of my like I want to still own my creativity, but yeah, using
mm,
it as that helper. But I always
yeah.
joke because I'm like, this is what I was for my clients.
I know.
I was
I was thinking these
ChatGPT.
kids today will never know what we went through. I
They
know.
will never know. But I actually, and here's the thing about it. I still believe, and I tell people in the society all the time, I need you to do these interviews.
Mm,
Even if you run through what's the common stuff into ChatGPT, I cannot have you go to ChatGPT to have it. I need you to talk to
uh,
people because that's where you're going to come up with the language that's actually going to stand out in your copy. I'm a
hmm
stickler on it. And I can tell if people haven't done it. And they bring me these very generic, well, my people are feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling this. I'm like, well, we all could say that in any niche.
Yeah.
So I need to find out if you're a relationship coach and you support
Mm,
people, they've been in marriage for 10 plus years and they're trying to like reignite the spark. I need to know what overwhelm looks like for them in that particular niche. We got to
hmm
go talk to humans. We got to find out.
I think that's so critical. And I feel like we're having more and more this separation of actually talking to the people that we're serving. Like I've been helping someone and she's starting to ramp up social. We're talking about like avoiding social, but trying to, ramp up her social. And I'm like, I can read the captions. In fact, she had forgotten she'd left a prompt in there. I had to let her know. But I can tell that it's not coming from particular interviews of folks. And so we've got to think about how can we connect with actual people, actually do real interviews, talk to people, whether in person or on Zoom or whatever, and actually get their information. Because the thing is, chat and all these AI tools have been trained on other people's content. They haven't been actually talking to our customers. And so there may be things that they haven't put out there, that they haven't talked about publicly, that they're maybe don't want to share in a broader sense, with their name attached to it. So you may be missing very key, crucial elements that they're struggling with or that they need
So
help
true.
with. And so I think it's really critical that we just don't rely and become lazy with some of these
Yeah.
tools. As efficient as they can make some of our work, it's actually watering down some of our end product.
And that's it. People
Mm-hmm.
will be like, well, I'm using it. It's not, people aren't coming to me or they're not buying or they're not. And I say, well, especially what we're living in right now. We're living in what so many experts have coined like a trust recession.
Mm,
And so people need way more touch points than they ever needed, and they need more specificity. They need to really feel like, oh, yes, it feels like you're speaking right to me. And I know we've been saying that for years, but I mean for real. Like people are
yeah.
not going to take out their credit card for anything that feels like, oh, that's fun. I
Yeah.
I saw somebody, I can't remember who said this, but somebody was like, y'all, no one's buying vibes right now. Like, and I died. I can't remember who said it, so I can't
Yeah.
give credit to the person. I can't remember. Well,
Yeah.
but it made me laugh because I was like, it's so true. And
Oh,
so this is
yeah.
what's happening by using ChatGPT. For too much, it's like it feels vibey and it's like it's not specific. So when you talk
Mhm.
to real people, we can get the specificity. Then you can take it to AI and be like, okay, help me list this or put it in a
Mm.
way that you can access it more
Mhm.
easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back. So you had mentioned earlier about not only just the word closet, but another element that we can bring in because, I know for a lot of folks, myself included, some days I'm just like, I don't know what to write about this
Yes.
week. I'm not promoting anything. What do I write for value? So any
Totally.
insight around that?
Yeah. So in the society, we call this your motifs. So what do I mean by motifs? And I'm sure this is not new. People talk about themes, pillars, all of that.
Hmm
But the way that we talk about it, I hope this can be helpful or a little bit of a different spin on it. So I like to think about my most ideal clients. First question I ask myself is what do they need to understand in order to be a great candidate to be inside of the society? So I reverse engineer and I go, okay, if the Copy Confidence Society is our signature program, and that's where we support business owners, as you so brilliantly said in the beginning, Michelle, to craft what we call your uncopyable message and the personality built copy that dazzles. So, what does somebody need to understand in order to be a great candidate for the society? So, the very first thing that they need to understand in my world is that the best copy can't fix a moneyed message. So
Mm,
most people come into the society and they're like, oh, just give me the swipe templates, just give me the website template. And then I'm looking at their message and their message saying, I help you live
mm,
your best life. I'm like, okay. I can give you the greatest website template in the world. And I think mine's pretty good, but
yeah.
you're not going to make money. We got to look at the messaging. So I
hmm
need people to come in understanding that. Because if they come into the program and they're not ready to do that, they're not going
hmm
to get great results. So that's one of my main motifs is the
mm,
best copy cannot fix a muddied message. Okay,
mm,
and then I'll explain how this all works. So then my
yeah.
next motif, I go, okay, what else does somebody need to know? Okay, that people make purchasing decisions based on two things. One is what you're selling, something that I want or I need. That's the messaging. And
hmm
number two, are you the person want to do it with? Do I get a sense of your
Mm,
voice, your vibe? So this is why personality isn't a buzzword. It really is a client focused way to help people make the best decision for them. So that's my second motif.
mm,
And then my third motif I always talk about. So then those are like my top two. And then I always say you can have like, I think like 3 to 5 motifs. You do not need more than that. Not need more than that. Okay. And then
hmm
another motif of mine is something that they don't all, so you ask yourself, okay, what do people need to understand in order to be the right candidate for this experience or to be a part of our community? What is something they believe to be true that I know is not
mm,
true and they need to stop? So my third motif is all around that. Is people who
mm,
are like, well, I'm posting, so why isn't it? And we just talked about like, so like posting isn't a marketing strategy.
yeah.
So that's one of my main motifs. So now how I have people do in the society is I go, okay, name a month. It's the month of May right now on the time we're recording. So let's say this was the beginning of May. So I'm getting ready for my content. I go, okay, this week, all of my content is focused on the best copy can't fix a moneyed message. So I'm speaking to that in my
Mm,
emails this week. Okay, second week is, personality matters. Here's why. Third week is like, okay, posting isn't a marketing strategy. And then you can just start to repeat those with like different ideas or things. Well, whenever I sit down, I'm like, okay, what am I talking about this week? I just go, oh, okay, what motif am I on this week? Oh,
mm,
personality. Okay. And I new stories arrive because,
mm,
stuff is happening that I want to talk about. Sometimes I'm straight repurposing from
hmm
other times, but that helps me sit down and know what I'm talking about. As I grew up Catholic, so I always call it ordinary time. Like if I'm not launching something, I call it ordinary time. So that's how I developed the motifs is like, what the heck are we doing in ordinary time when we're not selling? And so
hmm
this really helps me.
mm,
So I send 2 emails a week. So if I'm talking about, okay, the best copy can't fix a muddied message, on the Tuesday email, that might be a little bit more of an education piece.
hmm
And then in the Friday email, I might have like a case study or more of a conversation starter. Um, okay, next week I'm doing the personality one, and that just kind of helps me. And I'm not always like a stickler to it. Some weeks I have
Yeah.
something else I want to say. But if
hmm
there are times when I don't know, I go back to my motif. I go back to what theme I'm on
hmm
and let that guide me of what I'm talking about.
I'm curious about because people always want to know about the formula, right? Do you play it all with your template? Do you play it all with the length? Do you play it all
Mhm.
with promos? I'm just curious if you have a rhyme and reason to it, or you're just like, you know what, this week it's a 9-word email.
It's more the latter because that's just my personality, you
hmm
know. But yeah, I will play if there's a promo in there. I'm like, okay, can I fit the promo into one of these motifs or these themes this week? And sometimes
hmm
I'll organize. Like if somebody's like, hey, you could promo for us at any time this month.
hmm
I'm like, oh, great. If I have wiggle room, I'm like, oh, I'm going to stick it in this week because I know I'm going to be
hmm
talking about the
Yeah.
personality piece and it makes sense to bring that up. And I will vary. I had, for example, last Tuesday, I just sent this email and sometimes I leave room. I just call it like my universe motif,
Mm,
where I just leave room to like something I really feel called to say. And so last Tuesday, I just wrote an email that was like, hey, you're doing great. I know it feels
mm,
scary out there. You're doing great. And in fact, I'd love to know what's one thing you're celebrating in your business.
mhm.
That's it. One thing. Hit reply and tell me. And then the PS I put, I'm serious. Hit reply and tell me. And all these people were like, oh my God, I love this email. This is so refreshing. It was great for me to remember.
Mm,
Here's what I am celebrating. And so that was just like super short, super
mm,
quick. So I will experiment a bit with the length, but I don't harp too much on the length. Like I
mhm,
focus more on, okay, this is the theme and what do I want to say around that? And my readers will, read it. And I also
mm,
teach a lot in the society on formatting too, like how to
mhm,
make that email readable too, if
mhm.
it's a bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I love, I call them pattern interrupts, right? Any kind of disruption, any
Yeah.
kind of thing that's just like, because people are always like, oh, what exactly should I do? And I'm like, listen, you got to vary it up. I think, because if it becomes like,
Yes.
especially if it's super long, I think one thing people don't realize, if an email is super long, which sometimes if we're doing templated emails, if we're doing, pretty emails, if you will, they'll get cut off. And a lot of
Yes.
people don't realize this because you may be testing it on your machine, your email account, or your email client. And then you go to someone's using Thunderbird on Outlook or somebody's using some other platform, things get cut off. Things
Yeah.
don't work necessarily. So I love that you're playing and, there's a variety of formatting, a variety of also not always just like pushing and teaching, but also trying to interact with folks. I think one of
Oh,
the
I'm
smartest
always
things.
about
Yeah.
interacting. And
Yeah.
in fact, someone that we both know and love has this as a metric. The greatest,
Yes.
Anne Hanley,
Of course.
talks about in her newsletter, which is perhaps the greatest newsletter. If you're not signed up
Yes.
for it, go get signed up for it. I'm not an
Yep.
affiliate for Anne in any ways. Like I've never even met her. I'm just like a super fan of Anne
Yep.
Hanley. And one day we'll hang out in her shed or
Yep.
whatever, and the dog and the whole bit. I live for Anne Hanley.
The best.
Anne talks about one of the metrics that she measures is this, and I can't remember what she calls it, but it's the response rate.
Yeah.
It's literally how many people are responding to the newsletters. That's a metric she measures. And I
Hmm.
don't think we think about this. We're like, oh, sales, this, clicks, this. And Anne is basically saying, when you're reporting your data, you should know. She has a name for it. What does
You
she
know what?
call it?
And I'm literally in the middle of redoing her website right now,
Let's
and
go
it's
ask
email.
her.
You know
Hot.
what? I should know it too. This is embarrassing, but it's basically the email back reply rate, and that is not correct. And I will put it in the
But she
notes.
has
It's
a cool
exactly what
thing
it is.
she has. It's like
Yeah,
an
there's an
E
acronym to it.
something.
It's
Yeah.
end of the day, so my brain is fried. But
But
yes,
it's so true.
so smart.
And
Yeah,
I love this because I think we forget that like that's what's so cool
yeah,
about email is this intimacy that people will respond to you. And I am not above. That's why I say in the PS, hey, still reading? I'm serious, hit reply.
yeah,
Like I
yeah.
coax, I don't have to do it as much anymore because my list understands
They're
that I
trained.
will respond. They're trained. They're
Yeah,
trained. But I just love that somebody like Anne, who is like the
yeah,
goat, is literally like, here's something that I'm measuring. So I am definitely making sure that at least one of those emails each week is really focused on
hmm
interaction and response and response and response. I'm also playing with audio in my emails,
mm.
like sending, like embedding,
Little
like
snippets.
sending
Interesting.
audio in
Hmm.
there to people. I just did this for a last launch that we had, and it worked really well.
Yeah,
Like I was like, hey, I'm sitting here, and I literally did it like right behind
yeah,
me. I don't know if you'll release this as video, Michelle, or
yeah,
just audio. I didn't ask you.
yeah,
But I literally just sat here staring out the window and I was like, this is what I want to say to them about the launch.
yeah.
And that's it. When you came into the email, it said made this for you, Michelle, or whatever it was. And then
Mm.
you clicked on it and it was this audio. So I'm experimenting with like different those pattern interrupts. But
Hmm.
yeah, a big one for me is if I can get people interacting, I can take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I love playing with different media. I mean, that's why I'm trying to do more with YouTube, for example. I
Hmm.
love a private podcast. I know people have delivered. In fact, I've run a couple for folks. Like a private podcast is a great way. This is one of the pros. Just everyone knows who's on my list. I've got a lot of pros and cons of Substack. One of the pros is that you can have an embedded podcast, so that goes directly to an inbox, right? If we're removing friction and we're literally getting in people's heads with our voice, I think it's something that can be super, super powerful because it does feel intentional. It feels like, oh, this person's actually connecting with me.
Yeah.
It's why I love a voice note. It's why I love Voxer. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I
think
would
it's
much
me
rather do
too.
Voxer than FaceTime any
Oh
day.
my God, me too. And so I'm like, I love audio. So I'm going to start doing more audio because I love audio.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to really hone into that. Like, I love
Mm,
audio when I'm responding to people. Like, if I have
yeah.
to reach it, as you know, Michelle, if I need to talk to Michelle, I send her an audio message, you
Yeah.
know? So I wanted to incorporate a bit more of that into the emails for people as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And a Loom, listen, Loom is one of my, if people typically I've got to give visual feedback. And if I'm not doing a full on consult, but I'm just giving a friend like 5 minutes of advice, you've gotten Looms from me. Like I'm going to send a Loom because what would take me 40 minutes to write, I can record in about 2 minutes and I can always get
Yes.
the transcription. So
Totally.
powerful, so
Yep.
powerful.
So
Oh,
powerful.
I love this. Yeah. So, well, we've talked about, what do you feel like when you don't feel like writing? I want to know a little bit more about your personal habits when it comes to email newsletters. What makes you unsubscribe?
What makes me unsubscribe?
Hmm.
This is such a good question. If I'm bored by it,
Mm,
like, okay, so when you think about like the buyer personas, our joint pal Sage Polaris has the
yeah.
color coded copy system, and Sage will talk about the different colors. I am the buyer, which I think is a blue buyer. I could be messing this up. I
Hmm.
always say it's the blue buyer, and then someone recently was like, I think that's a different color, and I was like, okay, my whole point is, y'all, my whole point is that I'm a buyer, the
Mm,
the buyer that has to feel a connection to you. And
Mm.
I think that's why I'm so great at teaching that to people, because that's my buyer persona. I will
Hmm.
sign up for things. I don't know when the calls are. I don't know
Yep.
what the heck I signed up for. But if I feel a connection to you and I feel like I got to do it, I
Mm.
do it. So if I don't feel that in your emails, I am just, there's only so many like how to do this. Like I want a glimpse into
Hmm.
those like slice of life moments. So if I don't feel that connection to you, I probably won't keep reading. That's number
Hmm.
one for me. I also love someone like, and I do this, we do a monthly roundup email. So I love somebody to send me. I think it's why I love Anne Hanley's so much. Speaking
Yeah.
of Anne, is like every 2 weeks, it's very easy to read.
Yeah.
Like,
Very
but
scannable.
it's not like a template. Do you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying about Anne's? And
Yep.
I know this is your zone, so you'd be able to speak on it more, Michelle. It's not like I go in and I see like the branded Anne Hanley on the top. No,
Right.
it still feels like an email, but it's
Yeah.
sectioned and formatted that I lay in bed every other Sunday, waiting
Hmm.
for it to come in the morning. And I'm like, ooh, it's readable. So even
Yeah.
if we don't have that all the time, I have a once a month email that's similar to that. I call
Mm.
it our Sunday series. We send it on the last Sunday of the month. And I tell people like what I've been reading, because I'm a big reader and people
Mm.
love to know what I'm reading. I put listening, either maybe it's a podcast that I've loved or maybe something that
Mhm.
I've been featured on. We have a section called Stuff Nobody Asked For, which is where I just basically used to talk about my dog Jake. But Jake is,
Rest
left
in
this
peace,
earth, rest in
my little,
peace.
yes.
So I have other things like stuff nobody asked for. Like I had this meal, like a
Love
funny
that.
story or something.
Yeah.
And then we'll have another section of like community highlights, like what's happening in the community, and then like what's
Hmm.
on tap. And there's people who are like, I love reading this email every month.
Mm.
So I think I will unsubscribe if I don't feel a connection to you, and B, if there
Hmm.
isn't some email within your emails that I can like look at a little bit more section. But I also don't want it to be pretty. If I go in
Yeah.
there and it's like too pretty,
Yeah.
even if
I'm
it's a
out.
sections, by the way, which is just what I asked for,
Yeah.
but I don't like it. I want the Anne Handley way. I don't
Yeah.
want the other way. Because then
The
it
overly
still
done.
feels like
Yeah.
there's a distance from me to you.
Hmm.
And even this is a love fest to Anne Handley, so you can tell her to listen. She feels so accessible,
Yeah.
and it is such a rare quality. You feel such a distance from people that are supposed to kind of be up here.
Mm.
And I think that's what makes Anne's newsletter so powerful,
Mm.
is that it has those elements of like a newsletter, but it's not like prettified in the way that you feel like she's so distant from you, like she's in some
Yeah.
high tower with like her cool pantsuit.
There's so much I love about this. I want to pull out the one thing one of the many things that I think is a really smart thing to do if you're sending a lot of newsletters. I love this roundup because listen, I sign up for people's emails. I have a fake email account that I sign up for everybody else's emails because I don't
Yeah.
want it cluttering my inbox. It's a
Yep.
little hack that I have. And I love the idea of the roundup email because, like, listen, not everybody's going to read every email. It's the case of it. We could write the best people out there maybe get like a 40% open rate. Okay. Honestly.
Yeah.
And so when we come back into this is why people are like, I don't want to send more emails. Guess what? Not everybody's reading every single email. Just like we can
No.
put buttons all over your website, not everybody's going to read every little thing. Like
No.
I just redid my dentist website, and they're like, should we have this, the contact and payment information on multiple pages? I'm like, yes, because nobody
Yes.
reads anything. Like you need to make sure you're hitting it wherever they're going to potentially see it, right?
Yep.
So I love this roundup email, especially if you're sending multiple emails a month of like, hey, maybe you missed this. And if you're using something like Kit, which is my preferred newsletter,
Me too.
you could easily have links that go to your public facing newsletter, right? So
Yep.
you've got this archive of stuff. In fact, Anne Hanley also has an archive on her site of her newsletter. So you can
For
go back,
newsletters.
you
Yeah.
can reference stuff. So don't be afraid to reference your past stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you also say that you repurpose. I repurpose too. Usually, I have like buckets of things, and usually if it's 1 or 2 years old, I'm like, ooh, I'm ready to refresh it, but I'll put a new spin on it. But at least it's a starting point. So there's a
Yes.
lot there that I really like to make life easier for you. So if one of those is a roundup email, and I love the little like I love sharing, as a nugget. That's what I call my newsletter because I love the little nuggets. Some of them are going to be tech, but some of them could be just things that I'm loving right now. So I love you didn't ask for this, but here's what I'm going to share with you what's
Yes,
going on
yes,
right now.
yes.
Yeah.
Someone
Yeah.
else who does this really well too is Terry Trespicio, who we both
Yeah.
know. Terry's will, and I'm always like, what's Terry reading? What gifts
Yeah.
is she giving? Like I will look at those. And something
Yeah.
I've been experimenting with in Sunday series is to add another section, which is
Mm.
like the emails we sent this month. Because
Yeah.
in Kit, I can, like you said, I can link back to those emails.
Yeah.
So I've been experimenting with having a section. So if I have the reading, listening, I've been experimenting with also having like what you missed in the inbox this month, which is
Yeah.
just like if it's the end of the Sunday, and most of the time it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in a given week, maybe
Yeah.
6 to 8 email. And I've just been putting the like a topic, the hyperlink that would
Mhm.
bring them back to that email too.
Yeah. I think
So
that's
just
super smart.
finding those ways. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if that's all they're reading,
Yeah.
it kind of keeps them and then keeps them going back to the other ones.
I
But
was
those are
doing
the
it as a PS. So if I didn't have a
oh,
PS,
I
I
love
always
that.
have a PS. Usually I have multiple ones, which people have gotten on me before, which is,
Yeah.
but I know people read them and they click on them. So I like to put usually an Easter egg in the PSs, but often I'll do like, hey, did you miss last week's missive or last week's email? Click here to grab it.
Oh, I'm gonna
Because
experiment with that, Michelle, and let you know that
yeah,
maybe I'll move it to because I've been like, oh, do I want to make it a section? But I think I might put it in the PS, like, hey, PS, here's some of the top emails you missed. And I
I
don't
think
even
it's a
have to do
smart thing to
all
do.
of them, but maybe like 3 from the month that I really loved
Or
and just
even
be
if you've
like
got
that.
like a one that's performed well in the past, because
Yeah.
you got to remember if you're sending like a regular broadcast email, depending on how you have your list segmented, you may be sending to people who just signed up this week.
And
So
they
they
missed
didn't
it.
see last week's email, especially if you had let's just say you ran a summit, right? Or if you
Yeah.
did a big event or you were featured on a podcast, you may have an influx of folks and they've come in through your welcome sequence. Well, now you want to make sure that your best stuff is front and center.
I
So I
know.
love that idea of the PS or a little block at the bottom.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. So I just wanted to ask maybe a couple more questions because I love this about what makes you unsubscribe. What makes you subscribe?
What makes me subscribe? It goes back to their messaging.
Mm,
Like if it's clear and specific of what they offer and it's something that I need or I want, I will subscribe. So, for example, like, I am 3 years breast cancer free. So when I was my health coach, for example, it's like that was something I needed support with. So that was something that I knew I would read and I would look at. So to me, it goes back to something that I said, which is a little bit like Inception, which is, the best copy can't fix a muddied message. Like
mm,
you need to have a clear and specific message. So if you have that, that's going to make people want to read and be part of your community. But if
mm.
it's just like broad and like live your best life, I'm like, okay, I'm overwhelmed by
I'm
that.
out. Yeah.
Right. But if the person is like, oh yeah, how to have, uh, to be healthy when you
Hmm.
were, diagnosed with, life after breast cancer. I'm like, okay, well, I want to read
Yeah.
those emails. I want to read what is going on, what's on the cutting edge, better nutrition, all of
Hmm.
that. So it has to be specific for me.
Mm.
It's essentially what I said is that people are making purchasing or even subscribing
Yeah.
uh decisions based on 2 things. One is what you're offering, something that I want or I need. And then if the second is, are you the person? Is there something about that person that I
Mm,
want to be in their world? Even if it's not as specific, there's something about them that I'm like,
hmm.
ooh, I want to be in that world. So there's an element of
Mm.
either one of those. Yeah.
I love that. And, just a final question. Is there anything you've removed from your emails that maybe it's something you would have done 2 or 3 years ago that you no longer do? Could be copy,
Mm.
could be imagery, things you talk about, anything that you've stopped doing.
This is such a great question, Michelle. Okay, 2 things. Number one, I really want to make sure that if I'm using GIFs or GIFs,
Hmm.
whatever it is, I'm a lot more, but before I might go and I might find one, I'm like, oh, this is funny, so I'm going to use it. I'm a lot more discerning
Mm,
about making sure that about like my representation and like what I'm putting out there. And if I
yeah.
feel that is really important to me.
Hmm.
Um, Number one. So where before I'm like, oh, I'm
Mm,
gonna put this up. I'm much more discerning about that.
yeah.
Um, and also I'm somebody, I'm trying to think of this other, how to say this other thing is I didn't have the roundup before. Like it was just
Mm,
all the emails. And so it's kind of the opposite of where like it's something I'm glad I added in
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I want something for people that is a little bit more digestible. So
Hmm.
adding that once a month in has been really helpful. for me.
Mm,
So it's kind of the opposite of what, it's that, so I'm more discerning on the gifts where I didn't used to be.
yeah.
And I and I also make sure, this is just personally for me, like one of my biggest things is my commitment
Mm,
to, I got certified as an equity centered coach.
hmm.
So in my welcome sequence, I like to make sure from the very beginning that people know what my values are.
Yeah.
And I'm not waiting for them to have to go find like that it's front
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
center, which I don't, it was there if people came into my community, but it
But it's front
wasn't
and center
within
now.
the marketing, and it is
Yep.
front and center. So making sure that and I think the welcome sequence, and this is something I had to, I'll tell you this. The welcome sequence used to do it pretty clear because I literally
Yeah.
had an email in there that was copy edits for Joe Biden, where I
Oh,
just
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
talked about, better than the last guy who was saying all this, but here's some edits that I'd give to the president's team. Well, now he's at the time of this recording, he's not the president, so I had to
Right.
remove that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
that was very clear, people who read
Yep.
the
Clear
email,
cut.
who I was, where I
Yep.
stood. And I would get responses from people that are like, oh, I'm unsubscribing. Like I had no idea. And I'm like, great. It's so glad that
Yeah.
email number 4,
Is the
we
one
got
that
this
cleared the decks.
covered,
Yep.
because I don't want you inside of the
Yep.
society. You know what I'm saying? So that, and I know not everybody is that way,
Yeah.
but that's important for me. It's just, I feel
Mm,
so strongly in that. So really making sure that that's
mm.
front and center in the emails as much as possible.
You know, again, there's so much I love about this. One, I love the clarity and specificity of who you want to work with. Because to me, that is the very reason I started my business, is because I wanted to select who I get to help. So I won't just take money from anybody. I won't just let somebody buy whatever or have my
Nope.
time if we're not in alignment. I honestly do not want to help folks that I'm not in alignment with, or, frankly, you know, I think it's really important to be very clear on what your values are and what your mission
Same,
is. Right. And
same. And I've had
so
people say, well, you're cutting off and there'll be all these people. And I'm like, you could make so much more money. And I'm like, okay, that's
that's not my
gross.
goal.
That's not
Listen,
my
we all got
goal.
to
And
eat.
I'm
We all got to
making
live.
just as enough
Yeah.
money because I want to put money. I feel so strongly in our system and what we teach in the society. I've seen the
Mm,
results in it. So I'm
yep.
like, I want to put money in the hands of people that I know are going to go on and
Hmm.
do good with it and be responsible for it. So okay, so what's my responsibility to do that? And also
Yeah.
coming from my own place of my own privilege, like what are the so just
Hmm.
being more intentional within that. It's not to say that every email I'm like,
Yeah.
standing on my soapbox,
Well, I
but
think it also fosters, you've created a community and a space. And if you are a holder of that space, you have to create, frankly, a space where people feel safe and secure. And,
yes,
if people are not in alignment and if it's going to become an issue, which things are so polarized now, most of us are not, trauma informed trained, and we're not facilitators to manage this kind of thing. That's not what they're coming to us for. And
no,
so, you know
exactly.
what? I think it's just much cleaner and clearer if you're like, you know what? If you're aligned in a certain way, I'm probably not the best fit for you. And God bless and
And
move
that's
on.
okay. And
And
blessing the
that's
lead.
okay. I'm okay with that because I
Yep.
still got to live with myself.
Yeah, and it's something even internally, which isn't a marketing, a newsletter email, but when people come in, we have
Yeah.
a whole like and part of their onboarding that speaks to these guidelines in the
Mm,
community. So people know it's like I want them to understand, okay, here's what we're here for. Here's the space that we're
yeah.
trying to create. So even using my words in that way, it's not necessarily but when
Yeah.
people come in, it's very clear
Yeah.
in
I-
writing for
And
people.
I also appreciate that you're curating a sensitive experience. I think, and I call it GIFs because I'm an old lady, and because that's what we used to call them in the 90s, not GIFs, which is apparently the right way to say it. But,
Oh, it is. I say GIF.
if you're pre a certain time period, it's GIF,
I guess
because
I'm
that's
old
just what we
too.
call them. Because I used to make them back in the 90s. Um, but I think there's a sense that, a lot of times we're not aware, especially if we've got a global audience. We're not necessarily aware what something might have meaning to someone else, how they're going to interpret it. Also, frankly, it's not our own content.
No,
Those
it's not our
things
own
are
content.
someone else's IP. So if
And
we're
yep.
using someone else's IP, you're treading on some treacherous waters there, to be honest with you. Not everything's in the public domain. So that's why I actually almost never use stuff like that I'll use it in text messages, but I will not probably actually put them in my emails because I don't,
Yeah.
ownership is a very real thing. And
Yeah.
so I'm not trying to get into court. So there is
Right.
that, but I think there's also a sensitivity to it, and also an awareness of, like, there's certain words and language. I just saw Jon Stewart actually on a comedy tour, and he's like, there's only two words he's like, there's two words I've had to remove from my lexicon from the early 80s. I'm not going to say them here, but they're words. He's like, it's not a big deal for me to have to like remove that from my
Yeah.
vocabulary because I understand how that's affecting someone else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I've just been more, you know, when all else fails for me, I'll use a Schitt's Creek GIF. I use a lot of Schitt's Creek
Yeah.
because I'm like, okay, I feel great about Schitt's Creek.
There
I
you
feel
go.
great all
Yeah.
around about Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
You know, and so things like that, I'm just more attuned to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
doubt. Yeah, that's what
Of
I'd say.
course, you can always make your own gifts. Also, I have
I
a
know.
YouTube
I'm gonna
tutorial about that.
say
I'll post that underneath here. So you can make your own. I'm a big fan of actually creating all of your own content. So
yes.
getting your own stock photography, getting your own rather than relying on other people's. That's way you've got clear provenance. You know who owns it, and you know you're
Yeah, I think I
likely not
need
going to
my
have an
own
issue.
gift. You're right, Michelle. It's something I've talked to you about before, but I think I want, I think I want to just do like a bunch of all the emotions I'm trying that I might have to come up. I just want my own gift
You
for
would
it.
have so much fun just doing a whole
I
little video
know. I should
photo.
have done,
Like
I should
we'll
do
talk,
this.
we'll talk.
Okay,
But a
let's do this,
little photo
Michelle.
shoot. It's so easy to create
Yeah.
your own, and that way you've got your own library. And guess what? Other people can share them then. So
Yeah, I want
I
my own face out there. You know, I'm a Leo. So just
there you
like, you
yeah,
know, where I'm,
exactly.
people are like, oh, are you doing this to like, you know, to make so much money? I'm like, I'm doing this for the fame. I'm a Leo. Okay.
I'm here for the
I'm doing
fame.
this for the
I'm here for the
recognition. Okay.
internet points. Yeah, no,
I'm here for the, you know, so I'm like, I love the idea of my own gift, you know?
I think
So
it's a
yeah,
great because again, it's becoming a brandable experience, right? How are you
yeah,
going to stand out in a sea where everybody's sending the same kind of emails with the same messaging, right? If they're
yeah,
using chat, how you stand out is by creating your own IP. And
so true.
so whether that's visual, whether that's copy, whether that's whatever you're creating, I think that's utterly
Yeah,
important.
I love it.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm just so grateful
Thanks,
for you to share
Michelle.
this time
Oh,
with
I
my
love it.
audience. And
Yeah.
I will make sure to put all of your relevant stuff. Is there anything you want to share, like a freebie or something that's timeless that we can share with everybody in the
Oh,
notes?
I mean, the 50 plus scroll stopping subject lines. I mean, we just talked about newsletters, right?
Perfect.
Like you can write the best newsletters, but how are you making sure that they are like more of them are getting opened? And we had so much fun creating this. And everywhere I go, people will tell me, I was just at this conference now where somebody was just saying to me, hey, Marisa, you know, I use the 50 plus scroll stopping subject lines all the time. I'm like, oh, this is so great. And
So
it
good.
gives you 3 formulas you can use. And I give you examples for each one. I give you like 50 swipes you can take, and there's 3 formulas. And I just love to know, like, for some people, they'll come back and they're like, oh, the Cosmo concept is my favorite formula, or I love the
Yeah.
International Man of Mystery. Like, there's 3 formulas. So take it and swipe it and use it for your newsletters and have fun with
Oh,
the subject
beautiful.
lines.
I
Yeah.
will make sure to put that in the notes below. And
Oh,
also
yeah,
when we
yeah.
send up the newsletter, you'll get all of that info. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Marisa. It's
Thanks,
always such a
Michelle.
pleasure to
Thank
talk to
you.
you and
Yeah.
dig into your brain. And we'll talk about gifts, my friend.
Yes. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank
Bye.
you.